at that point, you're not there to play it safe. Like, if you're not taking risks, you're not competing.
It's empowering, you know? I mean, anybody who's done a CrossFit workout, you finish your CrossFit workout, and you're like, I'm on top of the world.
Yeah.
Like a hunger for competition and like that super intense structure, routine. I still had that desire.
Listen to the way people feel and the motivations for doing the things that they did. It was like they were describing me to a T.
I'm not trying to solve everything for you, but I know that sometimes you just need somebody to listen.
Learned the most is how to fill my cup by filling others.
Welcome to the Hungry Dog Barbell Podcast. Join me as I talk with passionate people about their life's failures and successes, and most importantly, what keeps them hungry for more.
I don't know. I'm in that mindset lately of just let things be, focus on yourself, don't care about other people, and just like do you and do it silently because it doesn't matter.
No one's coming to save you. No one's like, dude.
Nothing.
Something I said before, like you'll never be as great as anyone thinks you are, and you'll never be as bad as anyone thinks you are. You're always going to live somewhere in the middle, no matter who, what you are, what you're doing. So like, it really doesn't matter. Like, there's no point in doing anything else.
See, but that thing that you sent me on Instagram the other day about what your therapist would tell you about like living in silence and not needing to share every single thing about your life. And then it was like these mantras.
How crazy.
It was like, no one needs to know about your life. Like, you don't have to say. And then it was kind of just like, thanks for noticing, but I'm not ready to share yet. Because I feel like
if people try to like ask you about stuff you don't want to talk about, of just like setting that boundary.
Yeah.
I'm all about boundaries. I have to protect myself.
Yeah.
And that is what I've learned, because I used to just give and give and give and have nothing left for myself. And what am I doing that for?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What are you getting out of that? Yeah. I didn't even tell you guys this before, but you, I think, are the second most recurring guest on the podcast. This is your third time on.
That makes me feel special.
Yeah, the first person is Aaliyah Miller, and ideally you guys will come on even more. But I'm excited to have you guys back on. We have Missy and Al. So how are you today?
Oh, I'm good. Coming off of 14.1.
Oh, but Miss, how are you today, yo?
I'm doing good. I think that this week was emotionally draining, so I'm trying to like pick myself back up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Miss, you've had some life changes, some work changes since you've been on here last.
I have. So to announce to the world, I am no longer working in substance abuse. I have now completely shifted to intimate partner violence. So a form of domestic violence, but all about intimate relationships and abuse that happens in them. And it's wild. It's been a whole shift. Substance abuse was my jam. I feel like I could do it with my eyes closed. And this has just like, not turned my world upside down, but I don't know how to explain it. Like,
well, it's so different.
Yeah. It's like a 180. Like, I feel like you're going to turn your world upside down. Like, you're completely doing something different, right?
Yeah.
How was that transition from like the viewpoint of leaving behind some of the people that you were with before? Did you have like people that you worked with for a long time?
Yes. So prior to me leaving, I had two very good friends who left, and it was a very toxic environment. I probably won't go into details about it, but it was very, very toxic, and how we were just talking about like venting nonstop. I was so caught up in that and just being treated like shit. It was, I mean, Al knows, I would call her crying every day. Like, it was affecting every aspect of my life.
Yeah.
And this job came about, and I was like, dude, I don't know if I can do this job. Like, I'm scared of domestic violence. I've never worked specifically with it, but I need a change because I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm going to say something to someone and lose my job. Like, that's where I was at.
I've been there. That's tough.
Yeah. And I applied the last day I was able to, because someone reached out to me and was like, I really think you should try to apply for this job.
Yeah.
And I did it. I got the job. It's out of my comfort zone. I'm like doing public speaking. I mean, Al knows me like probably better than anyone. And it's wild, but it's like, I'm proving to myself that I can do these things I never thought that I could.
That's awesome.
And it's, I don't know the word, empowering,
Yeah.
invigorating maybe.
I think it's both. Empowering, pushing you to be like more of who you are, right? Like, I never like to talk about things like you're becoming a new person. I just always like to think about I'm realizing who I am even more over time.
You're always,
you're gonna grow, develop, and evolve. You know, Al, how's your job going? Are you still in the same position?
No, so I also switched jobs.
Nice.
Announce it to the world, girl.
I am no longer in drug and alcohol as well, but I'm more so just, so I do oh my God, I can't talk today. I do individual therapy. So
Nice.
I'm working for like an outpatient private practice, just strictly like individuals, which has been really nice because my specialty was adolescents. So I have like a range of adolescents to young adults to like even like a few geriatric patients.
Right.
So it's kind of like I see a spectrum and it's not just like one fold. So also like getting out of, not as toxic as like yours was, but it was more so just like I didn't feel valued and I kind of felt like I was working harder than everyone else and just like my burnout and like my emotional like kind of emotional, mental, and like physical well-being, I was like, I can't do this
and
anymore.
I think substance abuse is so hard because it's so difficult in terms of recovery, how they talk about being in recovery. And a lot of people working in the field see their patients relapse or keep coming back. And it's so difficult because you personally, at least for me, felt like I wasn't helping them. Like what I was saying wasn't working. And you know it has to be on them and their terms, but it was really difficult to see. And mine was like a residential setting, so they lived there for 28 days, and it was just difficult to see. And then the loss of people like from overdoses, like it just became like I just couldn't handle it
especially
anymore.
with the pandemic.
Because
like, I mean, my role was adolescent, so it's like more about planting seeds than like, you know,
stopping and
and it was kind of just like, you know, you can't do it for them, and then navigating like the family systems and like the relationships and all those other things. I feel like it becomes so much more, and I think people don't understand substance use. I feel like we talked about that, like the stigma that goes behind it, and I feel like if you kind of like peel the substances away, like they're still a person and they're still like the root of kind of what got them there.
Right.
So
because everyone's story of how they get to their substance and whatever it was that they are addicted to is different. Right? Like everyone has a different way that they get there. Like, Al, were you working mostly with groups before? Because you work with individuals now.
So I was doing like group therapy, which I feel like I always say, if you can do group therapy, individual is like a freaking walk in the park, because you're navigating so many different personalities, and then you're like, all right, I got to bring them all back to like the specific topic. So I feel like with individual, it's just easier to get to kind of like the point and the root of the issue and connect with them, because they're not trying to kind of like entertain other people or like,
I actually loved that. I thought I like would hate running groups, and I had to run groups every day.
So you were the opposite. Were you were individual before?
So I was with in substance abuse, working with individually and groups.
Right.
And the group, I would see the same group every day for 28 days, and I loved it because their personalities would come out. They would support one another as veterans, specifically. Like it was incredible. Like I learned so much from them.
Sober community is tight.
It was veterans and being in recovery, and those two together, I have never seen anyone support each other the way they did.
Yeah, camaraderie in that population is like just crazy. It's off the charts.
Yeah.
So how was the transition for you, Al? You were talking about it a little bit.
At first I like doubted myself. I was like, am I capable of doing this? Am I gonna be a good clinician? Like, you know, am I gonna be able to connect? Because I think in groups, you rely on your group members to kind of like keep the groups going. And so like after talking with Miss, after talking to like my therapist, he was like, you're ready. And I was like, all right. So I got to a point where I was like, I can't do like run IOPs anymore. I don't want to work primarily with adolescents. And taking the jump and like getting through my first week, I was like, hell yeah. Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And it was
Because look at Al, she can connect with anybody.
Right.
I'm like, there is literally no one she can't connect with. Therapy is no different. Like, if you can make that initial connection, you're good to go because they feel safe with you. And who does not love Al?
Right.
What a two.
No,
but yeah, and that's like, I always say, like, especially with working with not even adolescents, individuals, I'm like, this is your treatment. Like, you are driving the car and I'm just sitting here, and like, it's about you, right? Like, I feel like you can't go in with an agenda, because you know, it doesn't always go that way, and it's kind of just like being able to go with the flow and not go in with like an expectation.
Right. So we talked a little bit about it before, like, Al, when it comes to like relationships, but like outside of like intimate relationships, do you get like angry and upset? Like, are you like an angry person?
I will definitely say that with some like personal things, I've developed more anger and resentment.
Do you put those two together as like the same thing?
No. I think that like anger, like resentment drives it and it comes out as anger.
Yeah.
Just like, I mean, I love talking about like emotions, and anger is always like a secondary emotion.
So there's always something under that anger.
Yeah.
Deep feelings that people don't want to feel. It's easy to feel angry.
Right.
Like sometimes it feels good. Like you're pissed. You want to tell everybody to F off. But like,
I love that.
Underneath that is like pain, abandonment, fear, embarrassment, hurt, like that deep stuff that people don't want to feel. It sucks to feel that.
Right.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I'm not generally an angry person. I think I just...
When you drive.
Yeah, when I drive, I can't fucking... Like, driving here, there was someone that, like, didn't know where they were going, and then they tried to veer off, and then they put their flashers on, and I'm like, the fuck are you doing?
I was behind a U-Haul on the way here. I was,
yeah. U-Haul cut me off.
I look over at the dude. This motherfucker here.
But I feel like there's so much road rage that I like try to keep it to like, I'm like, be angry inside. Like, don't start cursing people out, honking. I never honk.
I saw some Gerard Butler movie like 4 years ago that he was a road rage guy, and it was the most ridiculous movie ever.
Did I see that?
I think we talked about it before in a class. And
Can you keep talking about the premise?
So, beginning of the movie, this Gerard Butler's wife breaks up with him, like divorces him, and then some chick, he sees her at a gas station, and she like either cuts him off or does say thank you for something real small, and he like loses it.
Oh, and he goes in and starts like killing people.
Killing like mad people, broad day in LA.
Yeah.
Mad traffic and
I don't
shit.
think I've seen it, but I saw the advertisement.
It's on Netflix. So like it was one of the drop down ones.
Yeah.
Yo, he's killing mad people. But there's no way he would just get away with all this shit.
No.
Because he like literally like pulling up, whacking people with a hammer, driving off at the gas station, killing the gas station attendant and shit. So ever since I saw that, I'm like, I'm gonna chill out on the road rage a little bit more, because I don't want to get involved in that.
No.
You know, you never know when something's gonna snap.
No, and I feel like it happens more like common now. So I'm just like, I'm gonna chill.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm an angry person. I would say like situationally, I get angry, but then it's kind of like trying to challenge of like, well, where is the anger coming from?
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, I know where it's coming from. So I can be like, all right, cool. Like either chill or like deal with it.
Yeah.
What about you, Miss? Are you an angry person?
I don't think that I'm an angry person. I'm so like, I feel my emotions so deeply, and like anyone that knows me knows like I'm an empath.
Yeah.
And I feed off of other people's energy. It's just who I am. But I more so, and tell me if I'm wrong because you know me, like, but I feel like I'm more just emotional. If something's bothering me, I usually cry. Even if I'm like kind of mad, I'm usually just...
That's how you express your emotion.
Crying. Or frustrated, but I don't normally get angry. Like I'll like raise my voice if I'm whatever. I talk loud sometimes,
like
but
lit up.
I don't. Yeah, like I don't like yelling. It like scares me. Like I don't like that.
Yeah. What about? What was I just gonna say? I was gonna ask if you were a crier too.
Lately, yeah. I will literally cry at like the drop of a hat. But I feel like I'm just also an emotional person. I'm very like empathetic. Like I had a client today that was just like crying, and I was like, well, if you keep crying, like I'm gonna be crying, and I need you to stop. But I think that you're really good at kind of like separating yourself from the situation and then like playing it through.
Like evaluating it,
Yeah.
which I didn't used to be like that.
No.
I used to react.
Mhm.
I used to just like react off all my emotions.
Did you feel like that, like when you switched jobs, or was it you?
No,
gained
this
that
was
skill?
like back in the day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like I've just grown and
Mhm.
evolved
Yeah.
and have learned how to manage that. Because a lot of what I think in my head are like scenarios I'm playing out of like anxiety and fear that aren't real
Yeah.
or like haven't happened yet, and I'm already like working myself up about it.
Yeah.
If
So
that
many
makes
people
sense.
are always like, "What's the worst that can happen?" You know.
On the flip side, the cool thing is like when you trust yourself and like your training and all of that stuff,
Yeah.
and like when you hit something, you're like, holy shit,
I did
this
it.
is what I worked like for, and
Right.
this is what I was able to accomplish.
Right. So you gotta have that mindset.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you go into it, as soon as you hear the workout, you're like, "Oh fuck, I'm not going to
Mhm.
be able to show my hard work."
Yeah.
It's like, well, then you just limited yourself right there.
Yeah.
You know.
Because I think, again, it goes back to like what we talked about earlier, is like when you stay in a negative mindset, like it's so much harder to get out of it.
Right.
And I feel like the fascinating thing is like we're so quick to be negative because it comes easy to us.
Yeah.
Like it's harder to put ourselves up. Like it's easier to put ourselves down than it is to put ourselves up.
Right.
And
It's-
why is that?
I think
I
it's
feel like that's like
this-
a natural like thing.
Yeah.
I think for some people it is.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that there's like people out there that are naturally positive,
Yeah.
and they like get ostracized, and we make them feel like they're weird. And
Yeah.
that's like something that I've been working on about myself lately, is that like, appreciate those people, because ideally you want to be more like them. You don't know what they have going on to get to where they are, right? Like there's people that we know here, that are just like, "Oh, I wish they would be a little bit more low energy right now." It's like, well, no, you should really appreciate that, because like you said, like a lot of people's natural state is to be negative.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you should emulate that stuff.
But I feel like that's cool, like even what you're noticing about yourself, right? Because I think, again, being in the role as a coach, like you're a therapist within your community, right? So like when someone comes in and they're really low energy, like it's easy for you to then like drop down to theirs, or like in reverse if they're very high energy, and like kind of just taking a step back and being like, I appreciate the energy that you're bringing into it, and like hopefully your positive energy can kind of like bring on other people.
Right. I mean, it took a while for me to like be able to realize that about myself, and like once I realized it, then the next step is to want to work on it about myself, and like I'm not always successful. Still, I get annoyed when people are like super cheery and like in my face and stuff. But like I look at them, if I have 5 occurrences with them like in the week, and 3 of the times I was able to manage it, which sounds like super corporate, but like you guys know what I'm saying. Like, well, then like that's successful to me. And then the next time I'm gonna try to do 3.5 and 4.
All about the self-awareness and the work.
Yeah,
I love
it took a while, like to be honest, like it really did. Like I feel like you look back, you reassess like how you handle situations from like years ago, and you're like, damn, I don't think that person would even say that I handled it poorly, but like I feel like I did, and that's what is important to me. But I want to make people feel like good. I want people to be comfortable around me. So there's a certain thing that you have to work on about yourself with that. But something I want to ask you guys is like, how do you go about the process of like working with someone that's like shut down? How do you get them to like talk about their emotions and feel things like you do?
For me, I always try to just meet them where they're at and read them. So when I was working in substance abuse, it was all men, all males who are, often not wanting to express themselves.
Right.
So I would meet them where they're at. I would just ask questions, but out of curiosity. And if they didn't want to discuss something, I moved on from it. And I use like a little bit of humor, like where I can relate with them. I would try to relate with them and bring in humor. And that, as soon as I could have that rapport with them, they typically would like feel comfortable and open up and share.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about
I was
you?
going to say the same thing. I think the biggest thing before even addressing emotions is connecting and like rapport building. Because if they don't trust you, they're not going to be like, oh, I'm having suicidal ideation or whatever, like is kind of bringing them there. So I think it becomes challenging, but I'll always like sports. Like a lot of my like young kids, I'll be like, all right, who do you think's going to win? Or like, what do you think's going to happen? And I had a mom say, like, this kid's 11, and she was like, he was really nervous, and like you just made him feel so comfortable, so then he was able to be like, you know, I get sad and I get angry and I do all these things. So I think like meeting them where they're at and then just trying to connect, even not on the emotional level, but just like, you know, tell me about yourself. What do you like?
Yeah.
Because then they're like, okay, well, they care about not just
paperwork. Like, don't put your agenda on them.
Yeah.
I remember working with I used to work with kids, and she was coming in for therapy and did not want to talk. She didn't want to be there. I want to say she was like 12. So she liked to color. So we would sit for an hour and color and not talk for I don't even know how long, until she started talking to me and like feeling comfortable. We just wouldn't speak. And then once she felt safe, a little bit would come out each time.
Yeah.
And I was like feeling like, dude, am I even doing anything? But I was, because I was allowing her to just be.
Yeah. Along that time, were you like, while you guys were just coloring, were you still trying to like probe and like start off?
Sometimes for a little bit.
Did you let her like open up to you?
I would just say like, is there anything that you want to talk about today?
Yeah.
What would you like to do? Like just letting her call the shots the whole time, and just allowed it to be. And it's oftentimes I felt like parents would pressure, like, what is she talking about? What is she saying? Like, no, this is about her, and when she feels comfortable, and I'm not pushing that.
Right.
Yeah, that's not my job.
Yeah. I use like a lot of the same tactics that Al was just saying, like with my teens, you know, the weightlifters. And I think about it all the time too, because usually people that are coming in here, especially like with our sphere of influence, are going to be like interested in sports or like working out. And I think about like almost every day when I drive home, like what if I get a kid in here that has no interest in any of this? You know, like how am I going to get them to enjoy fitness? Like how would I be able to get through to them? You know, it's tough.
And sometimes it might just be they're trying it, they don't like it, and they'll find something else for them. Like not everybody is going to love it, and just not, you know, always try to be your best self, but we can't always connect with every single person.
Yeah.
Everyone isn't going to like us or like our, like, I would always say that, and I still do, like, meeting with people. If you don't feel like we connect, if you don't feel like you can share with me, I want you to tell me, because we will connect you with someone that you feel comfortable with. Because if there's not a comfort level, there's going to be, like, no progress whatsoever.
And I feel like it's like taking the ego out of it, right? So like you connect with teenagers that also want that connection.
Right.
And like I have so many teens that they're like, well, why am I going to share this, and this with someone who like I don't know from a can of paint? And you're like, exactly. So like, you know, it's meeting them where they're at and just like allowing them to share when they want to. And like, hopefully, you know, 2 years from now, they can come back and be like, you know, I remember the training with you. And like, I really am now at a place to like want to do it.
Yeah. What you just said is a big thing that I've been talking about with a lot of people, like removing the ego from things in the sense of like, yo, if you really want to help people, if that is like your overarching goal, if that's what you like build your foundation on, right? Like, is it in line with your goals if you are upset if that person doesn't work with you but can work with someone else? You know?
Yeah.
That's like, it's hard to take a step back and be like, all right, it didn't work out with us. If you could go make it work with someone else, then I'm still happy about that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's about expectations. I think like we all come in to a situation with expectations. Like when I go to a doctor, I want them to be warm and fuzzy because I like warm and fuzzy people. And oftentimes doctors aren't. So now when I schedule a doctor appointment, I literally say, can you schedule me with a provider that's warm and fuzzy? Because I need that. Like, I'm not kidding. Because
what is the person
Are they like,
I said that when I scheduled my one doctor appointment. They're like,
great.
okay, I think I know who I can schedule with, because I have that expectation, and I don't want someone to feel bad if it's not personal. But there's, you know, like, that's what I like. I like nice, kind people.
But I feel like that goes back to like boundaries, right? Like being like respecting your boundaries and saying like, okay, I know what I need, instead of like, oh,
I never used to do that.
No, instead of like, oh, well, you know, I'm just gonna submit and like
I don't want to make them feel bad.
That's I totally get that. Yo, before we go on to the serious topic that I want to talk about with Mitch, so did you guys watch the Super Bowl? And more importantly, did you watch the halftime show?
Yes.
There we go.
I love Riri.
I love her. I have a girl crush on her. People who are talking shit, you suck.
I'm having.
I'm done. I want to delete you.
They haven't been on my algorithm, so it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, she.
Did you guys think she was pregnant like right away?
Yes. I went back and forth. Like my mom and I were like, she's like, maybe she's like postpartum. And I was like, but how old is her son?
Yeah.
I didn't know either. And I was like, well, maybe she just like gained a little bit of weight, but like her face, nothing else
Was, yeah.
was. So I was like, I think she's probably pregnant. And what a badass move to not tell anybody.
The
Like,
Super Bowl.
yeah, and not
Oh
have
my
any other
God.
acts, just her. Like, I
She
loved
did
it all.
She said, I'm going to bring a very special guest, and
Yeah.
she fucking did.
She
Oh,
said-
did she say that?
She said
I didn't
that
know
before.
that.
We were at Terrence's living room. We were talking about it. We were like, is she pregnant? Is she not? And I was like, yo, honestly, maybe she's just like mad happy,
Yeah.
a billionaire. She just had her first kid with in a happy relationship.
Yeah.
Like, maybe she feel pressed to lose the weight right away.
Yeah.
But then when she wasn't like moving around too much, I was like, all right, she probably
Yeah.
pregnant.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
she was like rubbing her belly, and I was like,
Yeah.
go girl. But I
Yeah.
do also have to highlight that Chris Stapleton, like the
He put some soul in that,
he
yeah.
literally brought me to tears. Like
Yeah.
I just felt like between him and Rihanna, because like two different artists,
Yeah.
like two different genres, but like sharing kind of the same stage,
Yeah.
not really at the same time, but it was cool.
Even at the Grammys, he did his thing too.
Oh, he was with the freaking Stevie.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, oh,
I didn't see that.
I love
Yeah,
Chris
you should watch
Stapleton.
it. YouTube. It
Yeah.
was good. Chris
Yeah.
Stapleton be invited to the cookout.
Yeah,
We
he
like
would.
him.
He would. He's
Yeah, we like
very
Chris.
soul.
It was good.
Love him.
So where you guys rank that, like in Super Bowl performances? Do you have a favorite Super Bowl halftime show? The correct answer is Prince. Just throw that out there. Yeah.
I feel like it's really cool to see the different people that come on the Super Bowl, right? Like last year was awesome, but that was just because it was, you know, like
Good.
Eminem.
I'm glad we could admit that it wasn't like the best performance
It wasn't
ever.
the best performance.
If you look
it was
at pregnant
cool.
Rihanna's performance,
Yeah.
the stuff she had going on, versus 4 men that could prepare for months. We had 50 Cent coming out of the
I was
fucking
just going to say,
ceiling.
50,
Come
that
on.
was
We could've had a
ideal.
better setup.
50 Cent hanging from that
Like,
ceiling
and
brought me
chubby,
back.
and chubby. I was like, bro, like
But he at least had something
Yeah.
going on. He had the setup from his
Yeah.
music video back in the day.
Yeah.
All the other ones had a piano on
Yeah.
stage and shit.
And
Rihanna
it
was
was-
up in the air.
It was cool
I
though
loved it.
because like bringing it back, but I feel like, you know, like Shakira and J-Lo, like I just think it's different artists. Some I'm
Yeah.
like,
Did you watch J-Lo's documentary on Netflix
Not
about
yet.
her preparing?
But I saw
It's
it was out
really
there.
good.
Yeah.
I'm
Really,
not
really
really
good.
like
love
her and Ben were beefing at the Grammys, and I'm like,
I respected that. Everyone's talking shit on him.
he looked miserable.
He was miserable probably because he doesn't want to be there and do that shit, and he doesn't drink.
Yeah.
He probably just went there to support her.
It's
Let
the-
him be. Who
It's the
cares?
vibe of the young, I think she's a little younger than him, young fun girlfriend
Yeah.
and older guy that just loves his girl and just like, yo, come on, babe.
Let it be. Everyone's like, oh, he
But
looks so
his
angry.
Dunkin' commercial was fucking like
It was great. Oh
so
my
funny.
God,
I
so good.
loved
It
it.
was Super Bowl, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
I was like, oh my God, because like I just like The Town is one of like my favorite movies.
Classic.
Oh my
Love.
God, and
Absolute
just
slap.
we said like one summer after we went to a bachelorette party, we're like, we're fucking going to Boston.
Yo, if Ben
Because we
Affleck,
met guys from Boston. And we were
Ben Affleck directs the movie, I'm in.
Yeah.
Buy my ticket.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
there. The town is
Oh,
slap.
but it's so good.
Yeah.
Okay. But I loved Rihanna. What about you? What about your favorite Super Bowl? Like,
I mean, Prince is number one.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Rihanna one was really great. I mean, Rihanna, she's a savage. Like,
Yeah.
I think she did her thing. Like, what better way to announce your pregnancy than fucking at the Super Bowl?
Biggest
you know,
stage.
they said there was like 3 million more people that tuned in for the halftime
Yeah.
show than the Super Bowl. I was like, yeah, that tells you everything you need to know
yeah,
right there.
and her like
I loved it.
business.
Her
She like
petite
all she did
little-
was go like
oh.
that.
Oh my
and
gosh,
her
I was like,
sales
yes,
A
were-
vibe.
That's like a woman boss
Yeah,
move.
Yeah.
she crushed it.
Because she didn't have to like wear revealing. Like she
No.
didn't have to do anything. She
Went
just
there,
had
did
to
her
go up.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
She had her
her hair.
dances, but she was still by herself
Yeah.
pretty much, you know? Like, so it was a vibe.
Hanging.
I love
Yeah, that
it.
made me a little nervous. I was like, oh,
They were
she's
talking
pregnant.
about it
She's had
like
up there.
in
Hi.
her rehearsal, like how unscared she was, you know, like doing that. It's like, damn, yo, like I'm not pregnant. Can't
No.
get pregnant. And I was like, oh,
Don't look
that's a
down.
little high for me. Rocky
How
Price.
big are these cords?
Yeah.
I saw that. You know what it was? It told me when I saw that she was like hooked in.
Oh, I didn't
was,
see that.
I was like, she probably pregnant.
Yeah.
You know, like because she probably would have had something even if she wasn't. But that was like, okay,
Yeah.
she's probably pregnant.
She
Yeah.
was
You know?
hooked.
Yeah, so that was cool. I loved it. I love the
Yeah.
performance. It's fucking Rihanna. How could you
Yeah.
not? You know?
Love her.
But we ain't never get music again.
No.
No, I'm sorry.
Mm-mm.
But it's fine.
Mm.
All right, Miss, here we go.
Yeah,
Back
let's
to it.
do this.
Back to it. So my first question is, were you scared when you were switching into that job? Not because of like the job, what you would be doing, but because of the subjects and things you would be tackling, like
that
it's
I
a lot.
was so scared. I had this fear in my mind, so like trigger warning if there's people listening, that I was just going to get a phone call of someone literally like being beaten and would expect that I would like go out and help them.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an unrealistic, like obviously if they're in that much danger, they would call 911, but that was my fear. And I was like, oh my gosh, like can I do this? And now it's gotten difficult, but in a positive, it's opened my eyes to so much about relationships. And that's why I like really wanted to have this topic, because it's just blown my mind of how so many people are in unhealthy relationships and continue in that, whether it's trauma, their beliefs about themselves, whatever the reason. And it's, in my mind, I'm like, well, how can this be fixed or made better? Like, there has to be education at a younger age. It's just thrown me in this like tailspin of like how can we be here and how can it get better?
Also, like, the expectation of going into the job. Like, we had so many conversations of, you know, situations, and it's like, we'll call the cops. And it's like, well, like the education aspect or the psychoed aspect of
complex.
I can't call the cops because. And then so it's like, how do you manage your own anxiety while taking a call, knowing like what you're able and unable to do in that situation?
Right. Because you're still a therapist, you know, you still work with them in that capacity. What are like some things about domestic abuse and relationships that like you learned that surprised you, you know?
Can I read it? Because I brought a little screenshot. So I learned about this, I guess it's a trauma response called fawning. Did I make you read this?
You talk about this in the group chat.
You
with
did.
us,
Talk about it.
So I'm going to read it directly.
Can you say what? There's fight.
So in terms of trauma responses, there's fight, flight, freeze, flee.
And now they added
fawn.
Yeah.
The F's.
Yeah.
The F's.
The 5 F's.
Yeah. So this just opened my eyes to so many things. So the people pleasers out there, listen up.
Trigger warning as well.
Yes. So fawning is consistently abandoning your own needs to avoid conflict, criticism, or disapproval. It's called the please and appease response. It's associated with people-pleasing and codependency. Fawn types seek safety by merging with the wishes, needs, and demands of others. So it's a maladaptive way of creating safety in our connections with others by essentially mirroring the imagined expectations and desires of other people. This is the biggie. Highly vulnerable to attracting narcissistic, abusive people who will exploit your willingness to deny your own needs in deference to their own. Lastly, fawning can be tricky because you believe you're keeping the peace. In truth, you are deciding to be invisible and available. Detailing what you can and can't do for other people isn't selfish, but self-honoring. My mind was blown after this training.
So wait, if you read that last part, because that's like the biggest.
Detailing what you can and can't do for other people isn't selfish, but self-honoring. So it goes into those like setting boundaries, and I don't even know where I was going to go with that. But it just blew my mind because I am a people pleaser, or I used to be. I'm a in recovery from people pleasing. But it makes, I won't go into all the details, but when I was in high school, I was a very vulnerable, self-conscious person, and I ended up getting into a relationship with a guy who ended up being severely emotionally abusive to me, and that has impacted me the rest of my life. So now being in this role, it's made me go back and look at all of these things and be like, holy shit, he was so abusive to me and I didn't even see it.
Right. Is that, do you feel yourself going through that a lot? Like when you're learning new information about people's responses to different situations they go through? Do you put yourself in the situations you've been through in your life? Do you see yourself going through like the 5 Fs? Like, see where you fall there for both of you guys?
Yeah. So I took melatonin to go to sleep, and I hallucinated. And I promise this is related.
Like
okay.
an ayahuasca trip.
I hallucinated on a very low dose of melatonin, and
That's really funny.
I was sleeping on the couch because like I couldn't fall asleep, and I woke up to what I thought was a man standing over me with a gun, and I froze. I could not move. I couldn't speak. Nothing.
Yeah.
Until finally I screamed for Ryan to come out, who was like, I was like, there's a man standing in the corner, and because I wanted him to get his gun. I truly thought I was going to die, and I know that's wild because it was a hallucination, but it was so real.
Yeah.
So that has made me look into these trauma responses, and can they be, it's automatic, so how can I redo that? Because I want to know safety wise, like if I have Ryan's daughter with me or whatever, that I'm going to be able to react and not freeze.
Yeah.
So that scared the crap out of me. I know that's like a side note, but I freeze. And we were like kind of attacked in Lancaster. And Alex ran. She ran while I was getting slammed into a fence.
There was nothing in your house, right? Let's say that first.
No, let me say it was a full hallucination.
Okay.
And there was nothing in the home. There was no man.
Yeah.
Nothing.
But you never take melatonin anymore.
But I won't take melatonin. It scared me to my core because
Yeah.
I was paralyzed.
Yeah.
But I think that's a common, like people hallucinate off melatonin. Like you're not the only one.
I had to Google it.
She means people take melatonin and then hallucinate. It's because you go into a certain REM state, and then your REM state is in your waking phase. You know.
Whatever it was, it was so that I always knew I had a freeze response, but that proved to me in like a state of something wild happening that I freeze, and I hate that. I don't want to freeze.
But was that also the subconscious, like in other situations? I mean,
I freeze.
How has being the job that you have now kind of affected the way you view your personal relationships, like your friends and their relationships, their significant others and stuff? Do you like view it through a different lens?
I think I'm still like figuring that out, but like somewhat. So I've reflected on my past and like looking at that. But I don't know, like it just, if I see people, like, I don't know how to explain it. I guess like red flags. Now I see like red flags and things make sense to me, and I'm just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But a person's relationship is their business, and I will not, be involved in that.
On that. Yeah. So if you see red flags, or for people out there, right, like if they're starting to see red flags, when do you suggest they act? Like, how would you suggest they act outside of like a therapist? Because I don't want to talk about your personal patients and stuff. Like, if like I was to come to you and be like, hey, I have this group of friends that I feel like they're in a toxic relationship, and I'm worried for the girl or the guy. Like, when would you say that I should act? How should I act? Like, do you have any suggestions for that?
It really depends on the person, the situation, the relationship, because you want to make sure, like, the person that's experiencing the violence or the abuse, you're not going to make things worse for them. So never, like, if there's physical violence, they should not be, like, in couples therapy. That's a no-no.
They should be separate. Yeah.
Separate. But I think it's just letting them know that you're there for them if they want to talk.
Yeah.
And just allowing them that space, because a lot of it domestic violence is a cycle, and it's not horrible in the beginning. So people always ask the question, well, like, why don't you just leave the relationship? But they love that person, and that person isn't all bad, at least in the beginning.
Right.
So it makes sense. So it's like, I think about shitty relationships I've been in and like stayed in way longer than I should have.
Yeah.
Why? Because I loved them. I had hope it was going to get better. I was willing to look past things just because I had rose-colored glasses on, so I didn't see red flags. They look like regular flags.
You tell yourself too that like this is what people go through in relationships, right? Because like I mean, people have written books on it, but there is no, like, people have to realize it out there. Like, we're all just making this up as we go.
Mm-hmm.
There's, like, gurus and stuff that, give you best practices, but at the end of the day, we're all just living lives, you know? So, like, there's no one that can tell you exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
So everyone's going to tell themselves, this is just how a relationship goes.
But also how much of it is, like, the work that you do on yourself.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, on the flip side of, like, maybe it not being a domestic violence, like, scenario, but more so, like, a toxic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember when we were going through, like, our phase, and it was kind of like, let's write down, like, our, like, expectations of a relationship and, like, non-negotiables. So it was kind of like, this is what we expect in a relationship, and, like, these are, like, red flags that, like, I'm not willing to, like, turn a blind eye for. And I think, like, then looking at it that way, like, just not in the abuse, like, the domestic violence, like, that's kind of, like, your realm, and I appreciate, like, learning about it, because, like, it is like, not fascinating, it's heartbreaking, but, like, when people say, just leave, or just call the cops, it's like, okay, it's not as simple as that. Like, there's so much more, but, like, on the flip side of maybe before it gets to being a domestic violence, it's kind of like, okay, what are things that you expect in a relationship? What are things that are non-negotiables that, like, if I start to see this, like, I'm promising myself that I'm out.
Yeah.
And then, like, the work on yourself, right? Like, when we were in toxic or, like, unhealthy relationships, like, I was probably at, like, the lowest point of my life.
Right.
So, like, if I would have been in a toxic relationship now with, like, all the work that I've done, I don't think I would ever stay, because I'd have been like, you can go fuck yourself.
It's gonna hit
Okay,
different,
right.
right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You're almost
Right.
like, I'm at the level that I'm at right now.
Right.
It's like the healthier you are with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you typically attract healthier people.
Yeah.
Not to say that, like, you know,
It's not.
people are manipulative and maneuver their way in when they see any little vulnerability.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's never going to be perfect, but
No.
generally
No.
that's how it's going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people just don't have the resources to leave,
Right.
In situations like where it
Think
gets
about-
really deep. You know, that's
Yeah.
like, I'm sure you see it, have to go through it, right?
Mhm.
Like, and there's resources for them out
Mhm.
there, but there's so many people that are not getting the help that's available. You
Because
know?
it's not well known, right? Like, I have a client right now, and she's in an abusive relationship, and it's like, okay, well, you know, like, getting your ducks in a row of maybe, like, looking at the shelters, looking at, like, you know, like, getting on medical assistance, getting food stamps, like, these things that, like, there's no one kind of advocating for it until you find it, or until, like, you are honest about, like, hey, I'm in a very, like, unhealthy and toxic relationship, and, like, I'm thinking about leaving.
Yeah, and there's stigmas around all that
Oh
stuff.
my
Like,
God, yeah.
we all have, like, egos to a certain
Yeah.
extent, and it's going to be, how many people do you know that could, like, go through a whole situation where they're in a toxic, like, relationship, then leave that, and then, like, a year later, 2 years later, tell someone with a smile on their face, oh, I spent the last year in a shelter, and then 6 months, like, in a one-bedroom apartment, studio apartment, and, like, 2 years on food stamps. Like, that's hard things to verbalize.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
And that's, like, where I feel like us as a society have to, like, change the narrative of,
Right.
like, at the end of the day, we're all trying to survive, and we're all trying to do the best for ourselves.
Yeah.
And it looks different for everyone, and it's, like, coming at it in, like, a non-judgmental of, like, I'm going to meet you where you're at and support you, because, like, this is your situation.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I feel like we're just so judgmental as a society, and there's so many stigmas that it prevents people from speaking out and, like, receiving assistance.
Yeah.
I also think, like, a big piece that I have noticed is, like, the emotional abuse side of it, the manipulation, like the gaslighting. Like, some people are torn down where they have no self-esteem left. They've been manipulated to believe no one loves you, there's no one out there that cares about you, you have no one. They've isolated them, so they believe it.
Right.
Like, once that belief, and kind of like circling back how we talked about where you get into that mode of, like, believing negative things,
Yeah.
how can they get out of that if they have no support system left?
Right.
No positivity, and they're being told, and eventually they believe it.
Yeah.
Because what else do they have to go off of? Nothing.
Negative thoughts are just like any other habit. Once you get into the cycle, the mode, like, they're easy to keep going. You know, it's much harder to break a habit than it is to start a new one. you know?
Well, it takes 21 days to break and develop a habit.
Exactly.
Shout out to the 21-day fix.
Facts. So, I mean, even if you started off small, right, that's what happens, you know,
Yeah.
like, and that just pertains to anything. But ladies, I think that the question I want to ask you, what I want to end on, is a little bit different than that usual, like, what are you hungry for? I want to ask, what are you working on? What's one thing you're working on about yourself right now, Missy?
Ooh, so many things, but my biggest, and shout out to Marissa, I am working with her on nutrition, and I have been since November. I was like really depressed and just eating shitty, whatever, but she has been such a huge support, and like I keep texting her, like, I'm not seeing results, I want instant results, what the F, and she just said one thing that like stuck with me. She's like, listen, time is going to pass no matter what. And you can either be like keep pushing on to see results or give up. And that's why people don't succeed, is when they give up. And I was like, I'm on that. So I'm committed to it. It's really hard work, but that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
So shout out to Riz, man.
Oh my God, I love you. It's just like a huge support. And just helping me like keep pushing through, because I'm like, I should be 100 pounds right now.
Yeah.
I'm not eating, like, I'm eating so healthy.
That's funny.
But yeah, so she's been a support, and I'm like really proud of myself.
That's great.
Yeah. I'm proud of her too. And honestly, shout out to Marissa, because we're also working with her. Like, Nick's doing a little bit more better than I am.
That's funny.
Yeah, she's awesome. But I would say for me, like, I'm really protecting my energy. You know, Miss sent me this like thing that we like talked about, I think, before even going on air, but we were talking about, you know, like, not everyone needs to know your business. And I feel like before it was kind of like I just dumped and like shared everything, and I'm just like, you know, I recently like lost my dad, and I'm just like, people don't need to know about my life, and I just need to protect my own energy. And I feel like it's shifted a lot of like the relationships in my life, and you know, it's isolating and dark, but it's also like reminding me that the people that are in my life are there for like a reason. And I'm just really trying to set like better boundaries and not kind of give in to other just protecting my boundaries and my energy.
What are you working on, Tay? And we'll finish on that note, maybe.
I love that, but kind of what we talked about earlier, working well with people that are different than me. I think I have empathy a lot, so that I can see other people's side, but it's still difficult to, I don't want to say I'm like stuck in my ways, but I have like a certain way of approaching a lot of things, and like I can rationalize a lot of things, and I think pretty quickly. You know, so to be in a job where there's,
I think again, it's all about protecting your energy.
I was gonna say that, like, make sure to set boundaries. Like, I used to just let anybody in my life, and I'd be like, what the? I attract the craziest people, dude. So now I'm a little more standoffish, and I'm okay with it, but because I was the opposite end of the spectrum.
It's hard, man. That's all it is.
It's a balance.
We're all living like a human experience. It's hard to just like keep doing it. But, like, that's the point, right? Like, it's gonna be hard, and like for the good days, you know, like you gotta go through those.
But attracting those people are always like, why? Like, what about us?
I'll just be standing in the I was standing in the grocery store looking for a Valentine's card, and this woman just starts telling me that she's taking her husband on Valentine's Day to get a colonoscopy, and she's showing me these cards, and I'm just like, why? I'm literally standing here like, no, stop. Stop it.
The universe is sending you those people, man. Like, something like I think about is like, if I could really have a superpower, I would want to be able to see people's like auras and energies like with my waking eye. You know, like I'd want to be able to see it, because you can, like, just in that situation, you can tell that there's some people that are just drawn to you. Why me of all people did you come up to and start unloading onto? You know,
I swear it's on my forehead.
Right.
But I feel like it's also like, it's the energy that you bring. Right? Like, just kind of like you, I'm sure in briefings or like just during a workout, everyone's like, oh my God, like, I'm having a shitty day. And like, they just dump on you because it's like, this is the role that you play.
Right.
Or like the energy that you bring. And it's like, bro, I don't want to bring that energy anymore.
You like, we all have and it's even before you talk, even like because it's people that you've never met before, right?
Correct.
Just an energy that you're gonna give off, even if you're walking around the grocery store not saying anything.
Yes.
It's just who
Well,
you
can
are.
I get a shield to just have my energy not be felt?
It's just,
That's what I want.
it's working on yourself. Like, so that's like
That's what
that's like an explanation of what I was saying earlier too. Like that happens to me all the time, and it's like, how do I find that sweet spot of like not ruining that person's day by like completely being like fuck you,
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah, which I can't do that. I don't.
Right.
I can't.
So finding a boundary that's like allows that person to be inside your bubble for a second,
Yep.
but then also cutting it off.
Yep.
But that's what you sent
Yep.
me. Look, I mean, and you can take this on or off air, but I just thought it was like, it was so,
I knew it would be right up your alley.
I honestly, and it was so true. So she had sent me this thing.
I'm gonna die laughing. She can't find it.
No.
I saved it, so I'll
It
be able to send
said,
it.
a little secret from a therapist. You don't have to share everything with everyone, and you can be selective about what you share with certain people. And it says, repeat after me. I don't have to share before I'm ready. I don't have to share with people who have a track record of harshly criticizing me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to share with people who attempt to one-up me.
Mhm.
I don't have to share with people who tell my business with others.
Mhm.
And I don't have to share with people just because they're demanding more information. And it kind of said like ways to handle it of like, I don't want to talk about it. Thank you for noticing, but I'm not comfortable going into detail. I will give you more information at a later time. And I'm still processing everything because there's a lot for me to work through. And then I've disclosed as much as I feel comfortable sharing. And I'm not ready to share yet. And I think it's just like, it's so important, especially like in your role of like, you know, thanks for feeling comfortable with like giving me that information, you know, and like just cut it off that way. Like we don't always have to ask people for more information or give people more information.
Correct.
Yeah, it's tough. It definitely gets hard, but like I tell myself, this is what you want to do.
Yeah.
You know.
And you're changing people's lives.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about it.
Yeah. It's awesome.
I'm on the fence about wanting to quit my job and work as a cashier at Costco.
You just started this job.
I don't feel like people have to deal to this extent with other people, and imagine like how stress-free it would be to walk around and eat samples and then be a cashier. I'm sure it's stressful AF, but not in this way.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, but I read an article about a teacher who quit her job and started working at Costco and was really happy, and I was like,
I think I saw that on
I said it in a meeting today. Just letting you guys know I am applying to Costco, so
There you go.
See ya later.
So everybody out there, all the dogs listening, in summary here, quit your job, go work at Costco.
Yeah.
It's been another great episode featuring Al and Missy. Peace.
Woo!
Later.
We out, bitches.
Yeah.